Hi, KalSolar. This is a response video to yours where you had some interesting questions about how it is that Christ could possibly be at the right hand of a being that's supposed to be this omnipresent being who's everywhere and who sees all and who knows all. The modern Christian concept, or the most frequent concept of their God. And this is just another example about how Christians just don't read the Bible. And I thought this would be a great topic for a Skeptic Bible study. So I did this as a response video. The fact that Yahweh is established as a physical being with a body that walks and talks and interacts with the other characters of the Old Testament is established very early on in the Bible. Everyone please turn to Genesis chapter 3, verse 8 and 9. And they, that is Adam and Eve, heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God amongst the trees of the garden. And the Lord God called unto Adam, and said unto him, Where art thou? So clearly Yahweh is walking, which implies legs, and playing hide and seek with Adam and Eve, which implies that Yahweh is not omniscient. Yahweh then drops by Abraham's place for lunch in chapter 18 of Genesis. And the Lord God appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, there 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and bowed himself toward the ground, and said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourself under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread, and comfort ye your hearts. And after that ye shall pass on, and therefore are ye come to your servant. And he said, So do, as thou hast said. Nuts. The Lord God comes by to visit, and here I am, fresh out of ambrosia and nectar. Well, apparently Yahweh needed to eat in order to get his strength together for his wrestling match with Jacob. In chapter 32 of Genesis, verse 24 to 30, And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint. And he wrestled with him. And he said, Let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except that thou bless me. And he said unto him, What is thy name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with man, and hast prevailed. And Jacob asked him, and said, Tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, Wherefore is it that thou doth ask me my name? And he blessed him there. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. What is this about, let me go for the day breaketh? Does Yahweh have an appointment somewhere, or is Yahweh a vampire? Anyway, so it appears that Yahweh does wrestle with Jacob, and cheats, and still loses, but at least is a good sport when he loses. Yahweh also speaks to people throughout the entire Old Testament very casually, as one person speaks to another, without even the need of the pyrotechnic effects of a burning bush. Everyone please turn to Exodus chapter 33 verse 11. And the Lord God spoke unto Moses face to face, as a man speaketh unto his friend. But then it later on says in verse 20, And he said, Thou canst not see my face, for there no man shall see me and live. So the Bible no, there are no contradictions in the Bible. Remember that. And verse 23 it says, And I shall take away mine hand, and thou shalt see my back parts, but my face shall not be seen. So apparently Yahweh has a face, hands, and back parts. But apparently even though Yahweh cannot be seen, Yahweh still gives public speeches to the entire nation of Judea. Everyone please turn to Judges chapter 1 verse 1. Now after the death of Joshua it came to pass that the children of Israel asked the Lord, saying, Who shall go up for us against the Canaanites first to fight against them? And the Lord said, Judea shall go up. Behold, I have delivered the land unto his hand. And later in Judges chapter 10 verse 11, Yahweh gives another speech to the nation of Judea. And the Lord God said unto the children of Israel, Did I not deliver you from the Egyptians, and from the Amorites, and from the children of Ammon, and from the Philistines? one wonders why Yahweh doesn't give a public speech to the United Nations. That sure would convert a lot of non-believers. Now, Ezekiel gets a particularly privileged view of God's body parts. Everyone please turn to Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 27. "And I saw as the color of amber, as the appearance of fire round about within it, from the appearance of his loins, even upward, and from the appearance of his loins even downward. I saw, as it were, the appearance of fire, and it had brightness round about." And Ezekiel gets a second privileged view of God's loins, or Yahweh's loins, I should say. Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 2 and 3. "And I beheld, and lo, a likeness, as the appearance of fire, from the appearance of his loins even downward fire, and from his loins even upward, as the appearance of brightness, as the color of amber. And he put forth the form of a hand." So he gets a view of both Yahweh's loins and hand. Now, one poster on YouTube who posted on my videos said that it's not necessarily so that these loins are necessarily male. It could be that this is Yahweh's vagina that Ezekiel is getting a view of. It does suggest sort of a column-like structure, though, even upward and even downward. That would imply that Ezekiel's getting a view of Yahweh's dick here. If Ezekiel was getting a view of Yahweh's vagina, then I would assume the description poetically would be more of a cavern or something along those lines. And I would also think that water, not fire, would be more the element of choice. Although, really, fire is not a particularly appealing element there either. But maybe Ezekiel was trying to say that Yahweh was both well-hung and hot. Anyway, it's not until the New Testament that Yahweh becomes a purely spiritual being, where it says in John chapter 4, the Gospel of John that is, chapter 4, verse 24, "God is a spirit." So, if you actually read the Old Testament, it is really clear that Yahweh is a physical being and more evolved over time, eventually becoming the spiritual being that Christians like to imagine today. And now, in the spirit of KalSolar, I would like to show you a couple artistic depictions of a few of the events that you have just heard about in the Bible here, with Yahweh first dropping by Judea and giving a public speech, and then dropping by Abraham's place for lunch, and then wrestling with Jacob, and finally an image of him speaking to people as casually as he spoke to people in the Old Testament.